Welcome, sir, in the morning.
Pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Sir, this year, as I understand it, is the 75 years of bilateral relations between the Philippines and Italy. A very long relationship. Maybe you can begin with, or maybe we can begin our discussion with, so how are the relationship between our two countries 75 years after we started?
We celebrated the 75th anniversary 2 years ago.
Okay.
So, but I'm here to present one of the effects of our celebration of that momentous anniversary, which is this book that we edited, which is, I brought a copy,
yes.
and I started to think about this book when I arrived, so on the eve of the 75th anniversary. But I think that even if the anniversary now has passed, but a book which is a concrete object that you can keep reading and keep looking at, keeping in your coffee table. It's a nice way to remember. 75 years is a
long time.
A lot. It's a long time. But I think from my humble perspective that I cannot think outside the European Union, perhaps,
yes,
of a bilateral relationship which has always been so good for all this time. There are many reasons. There is, of course, it's rather banal to remind how many things we have in common.
Sure.
And so
I
I'm
think
not
we're very similar.
very similar. So I'm not surprised at all. But still, it's a fact that in these 75 years and more, because now we are entering the 77th, 2024, we haven't had one reason to, I wouldn't say fight, of course,
sure,
but not even argue, not even, their relations have always been very, very good. Many reasons, we all know that. Let me emphasize what I think is one of the most important, the presence of almost 200,000 Filipinos in my country.
Our migrant workers, yes.
They are really part of our family now. They are the community, the foreign community, probably one of the best integrated foreign community we have in Italy.
Thank you.
For many reasons, of course, the
culture,
commonality of our
values.
culture helps,
yeah.
And also the way you integrate with generosity, but also with the sense of belonging that sometimes you don't find in other communities. So I think all people I know have had in their life, in Italy, my compatriots have had in their life a Filipino or a Filipina living in their household, taking care of their elder, taking care of their children. I am one of them, because my now 16-year-old, when he was younger, had a Filipina nanny from Mindoro. At that time, I have no clue about where Mindoro was. Of course, now I know very well. And she still remembers. Unfortunately, we lost track of her, but my son still remembers her with fondness and nostalgia even. The way she was living with us, actually. At that time, we had the need of having someone living with us all the time, because my son was too little, very little. Anyway, so the main reason for this excellent bilateral relationship, I think, lies especially to this important human factor.
Sure.
But also, as you said, common values. You've always been part of the West in the political, in your political standings.
Yeah, also in religion, also.
Yes, but it's no coincidence that on several important
issues,
international politics issues, you've always taken the stance of the European Union, and from my point of view, I noticed that, and I've always emphasize this to my capital. Not that they needed to know from me, but I, of course, as ambassador to Manila, I wanted to reiterate that you are by our side all the time in all major topics. And this is something which also depends on this commonality I mentioned before. So 75, almost 77 now years of this friendship, never show one reason for not being so friendly. And this is not usual. This is not usual. There is always something that you make reservation about in a bilateral relationship with a country. In our cases, fortunately, it never happened. And I'm so happy that I had the opportunity to end my career, to end my foreign service career in this country. I cannot think of a better way to wrap it up.
Off, huh?
To wrap it up. I needed. I was interested in serving in this part of the world, but the Philippines is the best door to Asia for a Westerners, for a European.
Well, thank you for that. The relationship may go much further back. I was talking to the executive director of the Italian Chamber, who was telling me that he was quite surprised to notice when he visited a restaurant, a small restaurant in Bicol region, and the dish was very much in the style of what you would see in Palermo. And apparently he did some digging, and when the Spaniards came here, apparently there were many Italians who came along, I think friars and other people. But of course, the Filipinos, they all look Spaniards, right? But apparently the Franciscans, I mean, there were a lot of Italians even early on during the colonial period.
No. Of course, I didn't have these details, but I'm not surprised.
I didn't know either. I was surprised.
Well, actually, one of the first who came with the Spaniards and who wrote about Magellan and his unfortunate, death. Unfortunate for him.
Unfortunate for him.
Was an Italian, Pigafetta. And by the way, one of the interesting features of this book, which I want to emphasize, is also available online in our website, is the Diary of Pigafetta. We bought the copyright of the English translation from a university, I think it was in Canada, who owned the rights. So we bought the right because we wanted to print it. So I understand this is the first time that a book edited and published in the Philippines contains this important piece of literature.
Congratulations.
So it's also our contribution to the cultural life of the Philippines, because who wants to read about what Pigafetta wrote on Magellan's travels. You can find it. It's so interesting that he wrote a lot about the Filipino customs and the food.
The food, the adobo.
It's a very interesting. He was very detailed on that, and strangely enough, he writes two lines on Magellan's death. He didn't write much.
Right, maybe it was traumatic.
Traumatic, or maybe he didn't want to give too much importance to the fact that the Europeans were actually defeated by a local
force.
So I don't know. That's very surprising. Out of 100 pages, you would expect that momentous episode of
would merit more than 2 lines. Huh?
Well, 2 lines. Two lines.
Interesting.
So this you can find also in
Thank you. We'll be very much interested in looking at it. But Ambassador, as I was telling you before we started, the reason why I was so interested to talk to you is because, one, you love books. And as I was telling you earlier, we're keenly watching, or at least I am keenly watching Italy, because Italy will be the guest of honor at the Frankfurt Book Fair next year. And the Philippines will be following a year after that. And, in this day and age, and I heard you speak about this, where most people are going to social media for information and for content, that you were making a reminder that books are very important. Could you Maybe talk about that.
Yes,
You were saying that we are what we read, or something like that.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think I am
Yeah.
actually. I am what I read. Uh, one of the reasons why I think that this initiative that the embassy took by initiating this volume project is also to create something concrete
Sure.
to remember our 75-year-old friendship with a concrete object called book, which is something which some people, I hate to say maybe most of the people,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
in our young
Yeah.
generation, don't
Unfortunately.
know much about. Unfortunately, the problem in this TikTok era is that our kids don't read much anymore, and this book is our humble contribution to remind the public opinion through the valuable help of your newspaper, to remind them that reading is important. Reading is a fundamental aspect of our life.
Sure.
Because of course watching a YouTube clip or an Instagram story is interesting, is even informative, but reading a book is much better.
Right.
Also because it teaches us the value of patience and time and reflection,
Yeah.
something that unfortunately our very, very quick times of social doesn't give us as much as it should. In other words, a book, you need some time to read a book.
Right.
You can take it back,
Sure.
read it again, something you don't do with a YouTube clip. I don't
Yeah. I
think
cannot.
they
Yeah.
watch more than once. They don't reflect more than once on what they watch. So a book is a way to become better person, better people. I don't want to sound too rhetoric in this, but I do believe that reading is an important aspect of our life. If with this book we give our humble contribution to this, to what could even become a debate
Sure.
on the importance of reading, I would be very happy. Books, and I'm so happy about the information you gave to me that next year we will be in Frankfurt. Our publishing industry is very healthy, I'd say.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I really hope that also the same happens here, that there will be more and more writers, more and more readers. By the way, this book is also a beautiful product from an aesthetic point of view. So it's kudos to your publishing industries also, because this book was made by a Filipino designer and a
Fantastic.
Filipino publishing
Fantastic.
house. So it's also an evidence of the ingenuity and artistry of your people.
Fantastic.
And so I'm very proud to have given them the opportunity to show this ingenuity through this book.
I'm sorry for looking so distracted, but I am very
No, no, no,
attracted to
don't worry,
the
don't
attracted
worry.
with the.
It took 2 years to make it, so it cannot take 2 minutes to read it, obviously. But another thing that it's interesting about this book is the iconography. We managed to find a lot of beautiful pictures, also of the past. Thanks to the archive of the Department of Foreign Affairs, also our archive in Rome, we found interesting pictures of all the meetings of our political leaders at the beginning of our diplomatic relationship. So also it's visually very, I hope, interesting and pleasurable to read, I hope. And we are very proud of
I
it.
look forward to going over it.
Thank you.
Ambassador, if I may ask you, the important another aspect of our bilateral relations is, of course, trade and investments. I was wondering if you can talk about that, because my impression is that there seems to be a lot more Italian companies looking this way. I mean, what are they looking for? What sectors you think would be good for Philippine-Italian cooperation, maybe investments. Not maybe not just Italians coming here, but also Filipinos going to Italy.
Oh, I agree with you. I always
Yeah.
sense this increased interest.
Yeah.
Of course, we have to take into consideration that when I arrived, as you rightly mentioned before, it was the
Right.
beginning of the end
Of the
of the
pandemic, yeah.
pandemic.
Yeah.
So of course, after that, it was to be expected a rebound of interest. But I see something more structural and more stable
Yeah.
than just a rebounding from the COVID time. And this definitely depends on the stability of the social, economic, and political situation in this country. You have elections last year, which gave the country a stable government, enjoying the overwhelming support of the of the electorate, and this is a message that for investors is very important. Stability
Political
is
stability.
something
Yeah.
that businessmen always
Of
look for.
course, yeah.
Of course, there is the usual mantra of the commonality of our values, because in a country where it's the only Catholic country in the region, we share our values. We also in business. I'm not a businessman, but of course I know that in business you also have to have values.
Sure.
The respect. So I think that dealing and doing business in this country, in the context I refer to before, it's easier because of that common values. Also, another thing that maybe you give it for granted because you live in this ambiance, but this is something that sometimes you tend not to forget, but not to give much importance to, the fact that English is your second language. So it's the official language of this country. So you can imagine for a businessman to penetrate this market without any linguistic difficulties. On the contrary, the problem is that Italians don't speak as much English as they should. Maybe
Our
I'm
OFWs
joking.
have.
I'm joking, of course. But of course, to come and not having
Yeah.
any problem at all,
Yeah.
it's a boost for
Yeah.
the you know the interest of a business, and also because also you are creating an environment which is more and more business friendly for this country. You're opening the possibility for investment more and more. And so definitely I'm very optimistic. I won't be here to see probably the results, but since I will be reading about this country, about the Philippines, for the rest of my life, I'll definitely, and I hope to come back in different capacity as soon as possible. I'm sure that very soon we will see a really quantum leap in our bilateral economic relationship.
Yeah.
So it would be an excellent way to, how can I put it, to paint the full picture.
Sure.
We have excellent political relationship,
Yeah.
excellent cultural relationship.
Yeah.
We have to do a little more to complete the picture
Sure.
with an important facet of our relationship, which is the economic and trade relation. So definitely the perspectives are very, very good. I'm very happy that when you speak to representative of the Italian business, you get the same impression. Of course, the embassy is working hard to make this easier and easier, negotiating also the text that can become sort of the juridical framework
Sure.
for that. Um, So I think that the future is bright,
Yeah.
visually bright.
What would you say Italy is very good at? Because when people think about
Yeah.
Italy, think about Lamborghini,
Yes,
they think
yes,
about Vespa. I mean, but there
yeah,
are many things that I'm hearing. I mean,
yes,
green energy, I think
yes.
is something.
Infrastructure,
And of
manufacturing.
course, the creative
Yes,
industries.
yes.
I mean, you mentioned
Design.
culture and the
Yes,
arts. I mean, in terms of monetizing or developing the creative industries through culture and arts,
yes,
you're certainly the first in mind when it comes to
yes.
that. Yeah.
No, thank you for saying that. Of course, Italy has an added value, being the country so famous for design and
Yes.
fashion, and
Yes.
which is the modern contemporary incarnation of our secular tradition of being creative.
Right.
Rinascimento is an invention of Italians several centuries ago. And then the Pope also. At that time, Italy was not united, so there
Yes.
were
Yeah.
different states.
Yeah.
But each of them, and if you read Italian history in those times, it's really a characteristic which you find everywhere and every time. They wanted to illustrate the power through art, as if they felt they were not military powerful that much, because don't forget that in the 16th century, France was already a united country. I'm not very familiar with the Spanish history, but definitely they were also a
They had some
superpower of the
issues.
time,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Portuguese, and even the Dutch. Italy was a peninsula divided into different states,
Yeah.
and not very powerful. Financially, some of them very
Yeah.
powerful.
Venice.
Florence,
Yeah. Florence.
Florence, especially Florence. Florence was the Dubai of the times,
Yeah.
the center of financial power, and all the main bankers were based in Florence. That's why, for instance, all the words which deal with the banking system activity, they are all Italians.
Oh.
Bancarotta, banca, bank is an Italian word.
I didn't know
Banco,
that.
this
Yeah.
is a banco, this is where they put the money, they counted the
Oh,
money.
I see.
Lettera di cambio, le cambiali, it's an Italian word. So these countries, these little republics or kingdoms,
Yeah.
they were very powerful financially, but not military, not
Sure.
politically. So they found a sort of a counterbalance of that lack of power also in art. So they said, and thankfully they did, they said, well, I'm not a superpower military, but I can have influence, I can become important, I can get all the attention and all the prestige that I need through helping the artists. And this is how the Rinascimento started. So why I said that? I said that because Italy has this incredible history of being a series of states, but geographically Italy has always been there, and also we were a linguistic entity, because more or less those little states in those years, they all spoke the same language with different dialects, but they could understand each other.
Sure.
So culturally, the unity of Italy had already been established since the times of your homonymous Dante, 700
Dante
years
Alighieri.
ago. Dante Alighieri was the creator of the Italian language, basically. So I think it's very obvious, it's expectable that this tradition of being a country and a culture, or a nation, better said, being a nation, which base also its own raison d'être on art, has influenced also the more contemporary, let's say, expression of our industriousness
Sure.
and so you ask what Italy is. Well, design, fashion, they are contemporary expression of what was the patronage of art in 500 years ago. But Italy is much more than that.
Of course.
And of course, I mean, since we are too well known for being the home of the best sport car or the best designer. My French colleague might resent that, of course. But as far as fashion, well, we compete with France, but
Yes.
we have our role. Uh, Sometimes overshadows the fact that Italy is one of the 7 most industrialized countries in the world. There has been a time when we were approaching the fourth place some years ago. But definitely we are stably in the family, in the group of the 7 most industrialized countries. And so we have our the infrastructure sector, railway, the railway engineering, shipping industry. We are one of the most important producers of ships in the world, touristic, but also military. We have companies like Leonardo, which is a superpower in that. So I don't think there is the need to remind your readers because they probably all know that. But Italy is a country which has a lot to offer. So the fields of cooperation I see definitely infrastructure, defense industry cooperation, machineries.
Sure.
Tourism also it's an important. Well, it's immaterials. No, it's not immaterial because of course industry means also touristic infrastructure. Sorry, tourism means touristic infrastructure,
Sure,
so they
sure.
are also concrete. But it's an overall, concept of cooperation. And I hope that if we finally reinstate the direct flight
Yes, I do
between,
remember there were still Philippine Airlines going
yeah,
to.
I was not there. I didn't
Yeah.
have reason to know, but I am told by many people that we are missing that.
Yes.
And I spoke with members of your government, and they are optimistic that sooner or later, and I definitely we will witness an incredible boost in our also economic and trade
Sure.
relationship. Because of course one of the reasons why I suppose, I don't have the evidence, but one of the reasons why the Italian business in the past has not been as interested as it should have been in this market is because the distance is there. You are the farthest,
Yeah.
yeah,
Farthest, yeah.
or one of the farthest. If you had a direct flight, the distance
Would
wouldn't
be,
count
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Because when you get on board of a plane, if it's 10 hours or 15 hours, what difference does it make? When you have to stop over in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, in Singapore, and then stay there, some business might say, look, you know what, I'm already here in Dubai, I'll do my
Might as
business
well, yeah.
here, why
Why go?
continue my
Yeah.
trip?
Yeah.
Of course, there are many other reasons. I'm
Sure.
just, but the let's say connectivity
It's
is
very
important.
important. Yes.
Connectivity is crucial.
Yeah.
It's crucial also to reduce costs and also helping the logistics.
Sure.
But I've collected let's say promising messages from who has the power to decide. So let's hope that
Ambassador,
we will have good news soon.
you mentioned the 200,000 Filipinos working in
Yes.
Italy. I hear that number actually doubles if you count the undocumented Filipinos who were there. I was wondering if you can talk about your visa policy. Has that been a concern for Italy? Has that made it harder for Filipinos going to Italy? And then I think I remember I've been to Italy many times, and the Italians who are undocumented there, they always I think they're almost relying on Italy's benevolence and giving an amnesty or something like that. But I'm not sure what the political mood for something like that is again. But maybe you can
Yeah.
begin with the
Well,
visa. Yeah,
yeah, they're two different
yeah,
topics. Visa, I mean, it's very easy to answer. I mean,
yeah.
we are part of
The Shenzhen.
of an agreement called Schengen, so we follow the rule. It's very easy
Yeah,
to implement the Schengen agreement because
yeah,
you have a set of rules
yeah.
which are known by the applicants.
Sure.
And we always say to our Filipino friends, you just read the, the requirements, and which are not particularly
Difficult. Yeah.
difficult or tight, and it will be easy. I always remind my Filipino friends that we are so happy to have you in our country because you bring money. That's very easy. I mean, there is no reason for refusing a legitimate request. I mean,
Yeah,
it would be stupid.
yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't say it would be stupid because a businessman, a tourist, even a person who wants to visit a friend, this opens another aspect because, of course, sometimes family reunion are very difficult to
Yeah.
allow because you have to demonstrate your interest to return
That's
in the
right.
field. This is the basic. The basic of the visa policy, but not only for Schengen, for all countries, is if you want to go and stay in Italy for a while
Yeah.
without risking to be considered a potential illegal,
Sure.
you have to demonstrate your interest to return here.
Yeah.
If you don't have money here, if you don't have a property, if you don't have a stable job,
Of course,
how
that will
can
be.
you prove?
Yeah.
How can you prove? But my aunt is very ill. Yeah, we feel sorry. But of course, even them, they understand. They understand. If you don't have a job, if you don't have anything
Yeah.
which calls you back here at the end of your vacation, of your business trip, then it's more difficult for Italy. Because, and I go back to the second part of your question, definitely we live in a moment in our life, in our, let's say, the history of our nation, where the problem of immigration becomes more and more delicate.
Sure.
You know, of course, you are a very informed person. You know what's happening in Europe.
Yes.
The pressure of immigration, most of them rightly requested by people who are fleeing from war zones,
Right. Right. Right.
but some of them they're fleeing from economic difficulties, and which is more difficult to cope with. Because one thing is that you apply because you want to become a political, you look for political asylum.
Yeah.
The other thing that you want to a better life in other countries.
Filipinos and Italians are very close, and I was wondering because of this general mood about
Yeah.
immigrants, right? That hasn't disturbed
Yeah.
that
Yeah, no, because you've been here already
for a long
for
time.
you. So the Filipinos
Yeah.
have been there for a long time. They proved themselves
Yeah.
to be part of the family. Let me use this
Yeah.
expression. We don't consider you foreign guests. You're already part of the family,
Part of
but
the
in a
No, I've seen
literal
that
sense,
actually.
because you
Yeah.
are in
your
your
home.
Filipino compatriots are in our homes taking care of us.
No, but
Even on an equal footing. I mean, they're
Yeah.
part of it. When you have someone who takes care of your ailing mother,
Yeah.
you don't consider her or him as a
No, but I've seen it
worker.
myself, Ambassador. The Italians who work with Filipinos or have Filipino workers, they are truly, as you said, like family. Not like I've seen Filipino workers also in other parts of the world, but it's truly different in Italy.
And you,
It's remarkable.
and can I promote my country also?
Sure.
Because it's the way we treat people. It's
Yeah.
our common value.
Yeah.
We don't treat our helpers or the way maybe other cultures do.
Yeah.
because we don't do it. I mean, we are very, very empathic people. So when we have someone who help us, we want them to be part of our family.
Yeah.
So this is the secret of a splendid relationship between our communities. I can tell you, I can promise you that when I'm back next year, and I will have hopefully a lot of free time to devote them to my interest, and
Yeah.
I will definitely try to mm, get to know better the Filipino community. Thanks also to your ambassador in Rome. I will try to stay in touch with the Filipino people.
So would you
Definitely.
say the Filipinos also are somewhat good ambassadors of the Philippines
Absolutely.
in Italy? Is that
If I
not
were
to
not
promote not to put words in your mouth,
Yeah,
but
no, 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 definitely. You can't put words in my mouth, and I would be even more emphatic if I didn't fear to get not respectful enough to your ambassador in Rome. That I would say yes,
yes,
they are the best ambassador apart from him,
of course, no,
of course,
apart from the
apart from
official.
the official, definitely, because of course
Yeah.
when some let's say foreign guest of our society doesn't behave well, it's inevitable that this behavior, let's say, put a negative light on the
On
nation.
their home country,
It's
yeah.
not fair. I
Yeah.
know it's stupid, but it's inevitable.
Yeah.
When you have a community like the Filipino who never create any problem, they're very loyal, hard workers, and they integrate so well. You don't even realize that you have a there is not, every time something happens involving an immigrant, of course the media always underline the
Sure.
fact,
The
okay,
problem,
this
yeah.
got from, because of course they want to titillate
Yeah.
some negative also feeling from the public opinion. This is bad. I don't like it at all, but it's inevitable. It's obvious that when something happens involving a foreign community, bad, the public opinion started saying, we should have more control on the. You never, never, never read one bad thing about a single Filipino. So that means that and you are a lot. You are a lot
Quite
statistically with almost
officially and
200.
unofficially.
And with all these people, I mean, you would be surprised,
Yeah.
but we are surprised,
Yeah.
positively surprised. Nothing happened. You don't go on the newspapers ever. The Philippines. This is very good because
No,
usually you go on newspaper only for bad reasons.
what's funny is that I see Filipinos pick up the language where they work abroad. But what's interesting in the Filipinos I see, at least in Rome, where I've been to, they pick up the Italian mannerisms.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
as I said before, now that I get back, I will really try to study that aspect too, to
Yeah.
get to know them. I'm sure that there is also an association, or
Oh,
they,
many,
yeah,
yeah, many,
at
many.
different levels.
Yeah,
So
you
I would.
normally organize around who are,
Yeah,
from people from
yeah.
the same hometown.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So thanks to your
yeah.
embassy in Rome, I will try to say, starting with a visit to the Jollibee restaurant in Rome, which is the first the first Filipino experience I want to make.
So again,
Uh,
Ambassador, not to put words in your mouth. So just to maybe put
yes,
a point. So Filipinos are still welcome, very much welcome in Italy.
very much, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like allow me to say, like all the legal
Yes.
work,
Yeah.
the people want to
Yeah.
legally
Yeah.
come and work for the well-being of our nation, of our
Yeah.
country. After all, we need also workers in
Yeah.
every single let's say sector of our economic
Yeah.
and social life. And allow me also to say something that, of course, we know how good you are in many aspects of, for instance, nursing or engineering. So what I hope that we will see more and more Filipinos also in other sectors of our economic,
Maybe some
you know,
Filipino opera singers.
well, you have good ones, but on this, let me say that I rather hope that they stay here
Yeah.
and to let's say enhance
Yeah.
the cultural life of this country. Because if you have all your best artists to leave the country and perform overseas, what can you do here?
Yeah, yeah.
You
No, but they
won't
go to
have the
Italy to
interpreter
study.
to study, but
Yeah,
then on the
yeah.
proviso that they get
Yeah,
back
yeah.
and start. I hope that also, and since you open a subject, I'm very sensitive about future of classical culture in this country. I hope also that we can support you in that.
Thank you.
Very humbly, I personally, being an opera passionate, I try to do that. I hope to leave a legacy also on this, because if we manage to create the public, more public for that, the future of classical culture, it's in good hands. If we don't have opera performances, I'm talking about opera because, of course, classical music, symphonic music, you have a fantastic presence here. Your PPO, the CCP,
Yeah.
they're doing a wonderful job, and all the other companies who are doing. But opera really needs a little care. It's
Yeah.
like our elderly in Rome, in the hands of your Filipino people. We would like to be your caretaker in nurturing opera, which is such a delicate flower. If you don't water them with care every day, and once it dies away, it's very difficult to revive it, because then you don't have the public.
Yes.
And if you don't have a public, you cannot do it, because you can produce the most excellent production of the best opera, but if you don't have people who buy tickets for that, it's useless. So
Yeah.
I hope also in the future, also next year, since my days, my months are numbered here, I have big plans, because I want to end my term here with some major event. Next year is Puccini's
Oh, yeah.
centennial
Oh,
year.
wow.
It's the 100th anniversary of his death, and we must find a way. And I hope also, not I hope, I'm sure I can count on the support of the Manila Times for giving, let's say, publicity
Sure,
and
absolutely.
coverage on this. I would like to do a beautiful event to celebrate also Puccini. It would be good for us, because it's
I think it would
our
be good for
one
us
of,
as well,
and
right?
good for you
Yes.
also, because if you create more
I
and
love
more
Puccini. Yeah.
expectation for opera, again, my successors and your successors, and the cultural milieu of this country will be more and more interested in opera. So that would be a great thing. So again, to get back to your very important question, the situation is such that, of course, the public opinion is not particularly empathic towards, but fortunately, the Filipino community is definitely not part of this picture. But not because we are good, because you are good, because you deserve this excellent reputation. It is the legacy of decades of hard work and good behavior, and wish to integrate, because this is the key. If you have other community who don't integrate, the relation will always be difficult, because it's obvious that people tend to say, you are here in my home,
Yeah.
so you behave. Of course, if the cultural differences are huge,
It's difficult.
and
Yeah.
of course it's more difficult, and you cannot blame
Yeah.
those communities to have problems in integrating. Fortunately, our differences are so small, even non-existent, because if you meet a Filipino and an Italian, I don't know if it's maybe the way we talk, maybe the way we.
No, it's like say, even the
Maybe, I don't know.
mannerism. You know, the
The
Italians
man.
do something like
Yes,
this,
yes,
and I
yes.
see Filipinos also do.
Yeah, I know. But here, for
Yeah.
instance, I found myself sometimes I have to restrain myself
Because
because
of course you have to adjust
for
to
instance,
it.
the tone of voice. This
Yes.
is it. The tone of voice. It's which this tone, no, this very.
Moderate, yeah.
I mean, it could be interpreted as a sort of,
Oh, yes.
too imposing, too even rude sometimes. I said, but are you sure I was? Sometimes someone said, but you were too grumpy. I said, what do you mean by? And then I realized because I talk like that. I'm very, especially when I talk about things I believe in.
Yeah.
I'm
When you're
very
passionate about something.
passionate, exactly, passionate. So sometimes this passion goes beyond the threshold of the Asian,
Yeah.
habit. So sometimes
Yeah.
I now I realize that I try to be not today, but for instance on official events. For instance, can I make a
Sure.
concrete example? Also because Mr. was there, the one who sent to see the rehearsal of Cavalleria Pagliaccio. Cavalleria Pagliaccio, the opera thing. Remember, you, isn't he a guy? I think he's a guy. Anyway, there was someone from Manila Time to cover that. And
Arlo.
Arlo,
Arlo.
exactly,
Custodio,
Arlo,
yeah.
Custodio, Mr. Custodio. And then we had this, it was a rehearsal open to the students, something I'm very passionate about. And I was actually the one who gave this idea to the producer of this opera. I was just a sponsor. We did not organize those opera production. It was done by this company, private company called Lyric Opera.
Lyric
Interesting
opera,
people.
yeah.
The main tenor is a businessman.
Of course.
I couldn't believe. I mean, he sang the most difficult role in the Italian repertoire, and he's not a professional singer, and he did it rather well. Anyway, we had the previous night the rehearsal to as many as 400 kids. Beautiful,
Wow.
beautiful. I love it to see young people to watch an Italian opera or an opera for that matter. And so at the introduction, I was very passionate about, very passionate. I said to the kids, you have to, this is great. This is a method.
Yeah.
It's a method because you have to sit down for 3 hours, still, concentrated, focused. This is something you don't have many opportunities to do anymore. So with this tone, sometimes even provocative, saying something, look, if you don't take care of these little flowers called opera, in 2 generation time, the CCP will become a parking lot
Yeah.
of a shopping mall because there won't be anything to perform.
Yeah.
So these expressions now, in retrospective, might sound a little bit too much for an Asian audience. I don't know if you agree with me. This is normal in our culture. It's normal. You like, even in America, no, you tend to be provocative to get the intention of the audience. And I even said to the media people, you have a big responsibility. Help us to promote opera, blah, blah, blah. As I said, in retrospect, I start to think that this approach might be a little too much
Yeah.
for the Filipino culture. Because some people said, not on that occasion, but in general.
Yeah.
He said, Ambassador, sometimes you sound a little bit too grumpy. Grumpy? Why? You're a little bit too bossy, too rude. And they say, no, I'm not
No,
like that.
I
I'm
thought,
not like that. I
no.
swear to God, I'm not. I'm really. I'm not like that. I
No,
don't
but
recognize
in
it.
fairness, Ambassador, I think a lot of Filipinos know that you come from a different culture, but
Yes, yes.
I think we've been exposed enough, maybe because of our OFWs as well, the difference between
Culture,
passion
yes, yeah, yeah.
and something different.
But
But we appreciate the passion.
but definitely I will try to reframe it because one lesson that I learned here is that you have to accept the culture, and because it's different. It's the same you're doing when you come to Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah. The difference is that I live here and I want to really become part of the family, of your family, also in my behavior.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador, for your
Thank you.
time. But before, is there anything else that maybe I haven't
Well,
asked that you want to talk
no,
about? Or?
just I came here with this beautiful book.
Yes.
One is
Thank you
for
for
you,
this.
Blanca, of course.
Thank you for
And
this.
no, really,
I look
it's
forward to
something
reading the
that I can say.
Pigafetta.
I know that for every father, his kids is the best. So I know that it's obvious that, but really, if you could help us to send a message, this has been a unique effort, which cost us a lot of effort, a lot of work, and
Yeah.
I did it with much pleasure and privilege. It's important that the public opinion knows, because it's something which is not so usual. And if you can also promote the effort of the embassy, I would be not because I mean I think we deserve that. Again, to get back to what we said about the importance of reading, it's a book. It's about our bilateral relationship. I think it's a beautiful product, also from an aesthetic point of view.
It is
And
beautiful.
the last thing is the following: these 80 people that whose stories you will read in
Yeah.
the second part, there are 80 people, real people. They have a beautiful story to tell. By reading this book, you will know a moment of their life, and my also ambition is that sooner or later someone might like even to meet one of them and get into depth about that story. You find one page there, but behind that page there are years of
Yes.
life of real people about our friendship, our bilateral relationship. I think this book gives the public the possibility to know partially part of the stories. And if the media sooner or later, not now necessarily, but in the future, might like to tell some of these stories, I think it would be very, very interesting.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Your Excellency.
Thank you so much.